Well, welcome back to Study on Spotlight. And today we have Tony from Bosworth Independent College with us, and also a regional manager, Rochelle, with us today to talk about the school. So would you like to introduce yourself and about the school a little bit? To our audience
Hi,
first?
Thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here and to meet you. My name is Tony Alton. I'm the principal of Bosworth Independent School. It's a school, one of the top schools in the UK, located in Northampton, just a few, less than an hour outside of London, and a great school. Offering a whole range of courses to suit students' needs. I think that's one of the real strengths of the school. One of the things that we're really proud to offer is different pathways that suit different students depending on their prior education, their prior attainment, and their career ambitions and goals. So range of courses on offer that really match what each individual wants to go on to do in the future.
Right. So you mentioned a range of variety of courses that are available to international students. So how wide is it, the spectrum of what courses that you offer?
So we take students from 11 years old, from year 7, but the majority of our students join us in year 10 and stay with us through to year 13. So they can study GCSE with us, which, as your listeners will know, is a 2-year course. GCSEs are world-renowned, gold standard, standardized assessment, really popular around the world. But we are really fortunate in that we can offer about 50% of our GCSE subjects at a fast track rate as well. So that means that students study the same content, face the same assessments, but they do that over 1 year instead of 2. And that means, of course, that it's not only more affordable, but also suits those students who are really, academic high flyers and who are going to sort of take GCSEs in their stride, and who may find, as some do, that spreading the content over 2 years, they become a little bored in their learning. They're ready for something more. It provides that additional challenge that suits some students really well. And then as they move into year 12, after their GCSEs, there's the option of doing A-Levels. Again, that sort of world-renowned, gold standard 2-year program, which gives students that brilliant opportunity to really dig deep into their learning, keep their focus really narrow, and then is assessed with terminal exams at the end of the second year. But we're also really proud to offer the University Foundation program, which really suits a different type of student, no less academically rigorous than A-Levels, mirrors A-Levels in the sense of students still choose 3 subjects to study, and they do that in the same depth as they would at A-Level. But it means that it suits those students who don't do best with terminal assessments and prefer, as many do, assessment through continuous classroom assessment and coursework as well.
Right. So the foundation year will be a 1-year program.
That's a 1-year
So
program.
comparing to the A-levels, additional
absolutely.
2 years, that will be a quicker option.
Yeah.
And to add on, we also have a pre-level program. So compared to the 1-year GCSE, the fast-track GCSEs, the students take the GCSE exams for all the subjects to study. But for pre-level, they study, but they don't need to take the exams. So it's for different kind of students. So some students, if they want more lessons on English to build their English foundations, it's good for them to join the pre-level class, because the pre-level will have more English supports throughout the year as well.
So does the student have to make up their mind when they apply? Let's say completing a Form 4 and decide to go to study a fast-track GCSE or a pre-A-level. Do they have to decide at the time applying, or can they make a decision when they arrive, after they arrive?
No, so they'd usually apply for a particular program of study with us. However, every year we do have students who begin on one program and then pivot to another, and that's right for some of them. So there's that flexibility as well. But what I'd say is, really do your research. There are those range of programs that will suit different students, and doing your research is really, really important.
Yeah, and throughout the application process, we also have entrance exams and interviews. So our teachers would actually advise the student which course would be better for them. So we would normally understand like what they want to do in universities. For example, if they want to do medicines, it's normally better for them to do 1U GCSEs because a lot of universities would like to look at GCSE exams results now. Whereas some students maybe want to do some other subjects and they want to focus more on English, then we would recommend pre-level. So it's more like a case-by-case thing.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of like the support that you mentioned, so how big is the school in general, the total numbers of students?
So at the moment it's around 220, 230 students. So big enough to offer the range of courses for it to feel like very much like a normal school, but also very calm. And small class sizes. That's one of the defining features of a Bosworth education. So you will know, maybe we'll go on to talk about it, but one of the things that's happened in the independent sector in the UK in the last year is the imposition of VAT on fees. Many schools have had to respond to that by increasing class sizes. And so it's typical now for independent school class sizes sometimes to be 21, 22, 23 students in a room. At Bosworth, the average class size is 12 and the maximum number of students in any one class is 16 as well. So what that means is, of course, teachers really get to know their students well. Students build that rapport with their teachers. Teachers are able to adapt their teaching towards the particular needs of every student in the room. One of our year sevens described it to me a couple of weeks ago as there's nowhere to hide in a small class, and that student really understood that was ultimately good for him. Because the spotlight is on each of the students. There's no chance of any of them sort of getting lost. We're really proud of our support for students who need additional supports. Perhaps they have special educational needs and disabilities. We know that increasingly globally there's a greater awareness of those conditions, and therefore it's really important for schools to put in place measures to support those students and give them that additional support that they need. We know that having a SEND diagnosis doesn't mean that they're not very academically able. They're not going on to get great results in their GCSEs and their A-levels. They just need a bit of additional support to get there. And at Bosworth, those small class sizes mean that they get that tailored support. And if they need, particular support outside of lessons, we have a brilliant SEND coordinator who works with families from the moment that they apply. So we're really able to offer that sort of tailored, individualized support to every one of our students.
So apart from the academic, it benefits from the academic side.
Yeah.
So how would you describe the advantage of being in the social perspective, like especially being in a small school?
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
students gonna adapt in and how they're gonna really
So we are a global school, a school with a distinctively sort of diverse character, and we're really proud of that. Our students currently, I think, speak 34 languages between them, but English is the language that is spoken in lessons. And the expectation is that when students are in the corridors and in the dining hall, they're speaking English. We recognize that that's really important for our overseas parents. They want to know that they're sending their children to the UK not only to have a great education, but also to improve their language. And there's no substitute for improving fluency through conversations in the language. And so we facilitate that. But it's also worth remembering that Bosworth, 30% of our students are domestic students. So they speak English as a first language, of course. And so that's a huge benefit to our international students. But our domestic students speak really warmly about how they love being at Bosworth because of the access that it gives them to make friends, friendships that form and last and transcend national boundaries and linguistic barriers and things like that. So that's really one of the huge benefits, I think, of that school, that is just, it seems like the sort of the perfect size, small enough to feel family, in focus, for teachers to know students really well, but big enough for there to be, a really brilliant wide range of academic courses on offer, but also a really rich co-curricular program, sport, music, art and drama, as well as academic enrichment. So a really lively community, but also calm. Again, we were just talking about students with special educational needs and disabilities, even those who maybe don't have a particular diagnosis of a particular condition. Some students just flourish best in smaller, calmer, quieter schools, and Bosworth is that. One of the things that I was really struck by when I first went there was how respectful and students are towards their teachers, which is great, and you'd find that in many schools. But one of the really lovely things is how kind and respectful students are towards each other as well. That's what, again, I think I would say one of the sort of defining features of the school. And I don't think I've ever worked with a staff body who are so completely committed to the care and well-being and flourishing of each of the students. And that means them getting their best, doing their best and attaining their best academically, but staff who really care about students' well-being, about their safeguarding, and who are their champions and their cheerleaders. Really, they're standing alongside them and celebrating with them when they have achievements. But also, life is tough when you're a teenager, and standing alongside them, supporting them, and holding their hand through those more difficult times as well.
Right. So because some of them, like when parents and students decide to go study abroad, so sometimes they look for like a city, more like vibrant places, more busy, or maybe a bigger schools that they would think that will provide much more student life. But actually being, as you described, being in a much smaller size school, the community, the bonding between the staff and the students are much closer and in a much calmer environment. It kind of provide that environment allowing students to flourish and really focus on themselves.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think also our location is really key to our philosophy and ethos. And that is that we are just outside of London, so less than an hour away, a direct train. The school is just a few minutes in a taxi from the train station, so you get to access our students on some of them each weekend are accessing all of the cultural and historical riches of being in one of the most vibrant capital cities in the world. But they get to come home to a calmer, safer place. And I think that's really reassuring to parents who, frankly, our students get the best of both worlds. And then, those great cities aside from London, Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester, great centres of, history and culture, but also of learning as well, with some great universities. They are on our doorstep within, an hour or two's journey by train. So it means that students get to go and socialise there, go to museums and galleries and things like that. We organise lots of trips for them. But also if they're thinking about different destinations to go to, it's very easy for them to go and visit those great universities and spend time there and build up relationships very early on with the admissions officers there.
At the beginning of every academic year, we also have like a week of induction program for students to settle down in at the school before lessons actually starts, because the reason why we do that is because we know a lot of students, they came all the way far away from the UK, from their home. So they need some time to settle down, to explore the environment, to meet some new friends. So there's a week of time. We'll bring them around, show them around the city, the school, so they will familiarize with the new environment before they actually start the lessons. Because sometimes if you go to a new environment and you start learning then another language, then it's a bit overwhelming for some students. So that program is also helps students to settle down.
So no class at all.
So the first couple of days are about settling in, induction, and building those relationships with the key people who are going to be there walking with you on your academic journey during your time at Bosworth. We had a recent inspection. By recent, I mean just a few weeks ago, by the Independent Schools Inspectorate. That's the body authorised by the Department for Education of the UK government to inspect independent schools. But one of the things that they noticed, one of the many brilliant things they noticed, was that students were telling them consistently when they arrived in the UK, from the moment they arrived, they felt welcome. And they spoke about how warm the relationship and rapport is with their house parents, who they described, this is really, really brilliant to hear, they described those house parents as second parents to them, and creating that home from home. And we recognize that home, while they're with us, is a long way away, and inevitably at times they will feel homesick. But it was great to see that the inspectors saw the strength of that support that we give. We've got the formal pastoral structure in place that any school does, but some really brilliant people in those key roles who are there to support, particularly our boarders.
Yeah, because sometimes we just ignore the time, how much is time taking to settle down.
Yeah.
I especially remember, when I went to the UK, the first day in school, I just can't remember anyone's name,
Yeah.
like the last
Absolutely.
name, like
Yeah.
how do you pronounce it, how do you
Absolutely.
remember it, and then obviously because the campus in the UK is much larger size than
Yeah.
the Hong Kong one, and you have to run around and catch your classes
Yeah.
at different classrooms.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
completely different than to Hong Kong, because Hong Kong you basically just sit in one classroom and
Yeah.
wait for
Yeah.
the teachers come.
Yeah.
But I really got lost in the first round.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
normally
So yeah.
everyone's
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
day, getting
Yeah, yeah,
lost in
yeah.
the school.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important, actually. I like the fact that you've just said that. I think the fact that there is a very structured induction program that every student goes on, even domestic students join in that as well, which means that they can experience what it is to be lost in a school, but at least they're doing it with
Yeah.
their peers. And,
Yeah.
and that's another way in which relationships are sort of formed. And I was really struck by, again, one of the things that you don't find in every school is that warmth of relationship between students as well. And that's forged from their very first day.
I think that induction program really helps students settling in the school, because when you need to learn so much stuff, and then you need to meet friends, so many new faces, so many names to remember, there's class, so
Yeah.
much stuff happening at the
Yeah.
same time.
And for many of our students, they've never visited the school in person, and some of them have never been to the UK before as well. So we take really seriously that many of them and their parents in particular have chosen Bosworth because they want, yes, great academic outcomes, which they get, and brilliant support, which they get, but they also want that sort of immersion in UK culture, and so we make sure that we facilitate them making the most of their time of being in the UK.
And also, apart from that, we also have induction in the boarding house, so we teach them like how to do laundry.
Yeah, again, we can't
Which-
assume that
yeah,
you know
which a lot of
that they all
students
know how to do that.
may
Many of
have-
them have
yeah.
never lived independently before, and they don't live independently, but because they have their house parents. But there are certain things that they have to do for themselves, like their laundry,
Yeah.
and it may be the first time that they've done it. So for some of them, that's a
new thing to
steeper
learn.
learning curve than for others.
And regardless what age and what year group you're in, everyone just has to learn it from scratch.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
So, well, speaking, you just mentioned about the location before, so close to the big cities, and also a quick, short train journey to all these renowned UK universities. So, how the college prepares students for their career prospects afterwards, after
Yeah.
staying A-level or foundations, and how the school support them in general?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think our approach is always to look at the individual that each student is. And that begins from the moment they begin to make an inquiry about us, those conversations that we have with them from the outset about which program of study is going to suit you best and things like that. But I think that individualized support really reaches its sort of climax and comes to fruition as they draw towards the end of their time with us, as they're doing their A-levels. And so very early on in year 12, we make sure that our brilliant director of future pathways, who is a member of the senior team, really well qualified, a lot of experience of supporting students to make applications. So she would meet with each of them individually. There will be weekly seminars as well. Their personal tutors get involved. So there are any number of people that they can go to who's going to help them to ask the right questions when they're doing their research. Because there are lots of myths out there, or students arrive with, one particular course at one particular university in mind. And that's great, but sometimes we encourage them to think differently or a bit more broadly. But then when it comes to the application process, there is a way in which you can make your application stand out from the crowd. So they're given lots of coaching and support about how to do that. We're really proud of the fact that we've built in the last couple of months some really interesting, unique partnerships with local industry. So, for example, our aspiring computer scientists can now go and do some work experience for 8 weeks with a local computer science tech company. So they get that real world work experience that they can put on their applications. Not every applicant is going to be able to put that, and it's a way in which you stand out from the crowd. And just in the last 2 weeks, we've forged a relationship with Northampton General Hospital, which is just down the road from us. So you will know, or many of your hearers and listeners will know, that if you're an aspiring medic, really you need to have done work experience, but that's really difficult to do because understandably hospitals just don't open their doors to under 18s and let them wander around and observe. But we have a unique relationship with the hospital in Northampton. So our students can do up to 100 hours of work experience and volunteering in the course of a year. It's transformational. So we have a really strong track record of supporting our medic students anyway. But with this new initiative added into the mix, this is a really exciting venture for us. And we're really proud of our location and really committed to working increasingly with the businesses and the industries, and our local community on our doorstep.
And I guess for students who are aspiring to study medicine, they all know that like having a shadowing or any placement that would add points to their application. But for students who are applying for other subjects like university, especially as well, you mentioned about like computer science or maybe business or any other. How is it? Would you mind telling us, our student, how's that important in there, and how that define them different, like differentiate them to other applicants as well, especially under the reformation in the UCAS application?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've got to show, if you really want to stand out from the crowd and you're applying for those competitive courses, I think the first thing is, of course, your grades. But you've got to remember, and this is sometimes difficult for students to hear, but if you're applying for some of these courses and you've got your A-star predictions, so has everybody else who's applying. So then you have to think beyond that. How can you show in your application that you have gone consistently above and beyond the restrictions of the exam specification? It's no good saying we've studied this topic or that topic, because everybody who studies that has to study that. But so have you read this book? And it's not about the quantity of books that you've read. It could be that you've read only one chapter of one book, but if you're able to show in your UCAS form that you've really reflected deeply and it's altered your thinking or changed your perspective on something, that shows real engagement with the text, which is those sort of mature skills that universities are looking for. Do you listen to this podcast? Or it's not difficult to do, but it does require initiative and real drive on the part of the student. And yes, they need to be focused on getting those great outcomes, but they also need to be taking time outside of lessons. Yes, to be doing their homework, but to be going above and beyond as well. And I talked earlier on about our academic enrichment program, which is integral to our co-curricular program. We try to make that as easy as possible for students as well. So there's a program of visiting lecturers, and they sometimes have an academic focus, they sometimes have a careers focus, but we're constantly trying to provide our students with opportunities to keep their horizons really broad and their perspectives really wide.
So how about the recent student achievement, like at Bosworth? So you should mind sharing, like where do the students go after like completing their qualification? Yeah.
So we are equally proud of each of them. I think one of the defining features of a Bosworth education is that no matter what your prior attainment, your goals, your ambitions, you're set on a trajectory to success. And for each of them, that will mean something different. But you look at the destination of leavers list from last year. Our class of 2024 went on to do brilliant things at brilliant institutions, including medicine at some of the top universities, neuroscience, computer science, and then mathematics and physics and everything. There is no one particular sort of type of student that we welcome. They've all got their own interests and ambitions, and we support each of them to fulfill that potential. But yeah, and then our current cohort are sitting on again some really brilliant offers from some of the top universities, and that they've got to get the grades now to take up those places, and I'm really thinking about them at the moment, because their exams, their public examinations start in just a couple of weeks' time. So I know that many of them have chosen to stay in school this Easter holiday. We don't close our boarding houses during half terms. We don't have exeat weekends, and that's included in the fee. They're not charged additional costs for that. If they do want to stay with us for Easter, we do charge, because it's a much longer holiday. But we don't kick them out, and that's really important, I think, particularly for year 11 and 13 students, but also for parents who don't want the stress and the anxiety of having to find somewhere for their children to go on exeat weekends or when the boarding houses close. We only close our boarding houses at Christmas and summer.
Yeah, especially because once you're on holiday, kind of like students just on this holiday mood and forgot about all the studying. And but being in a school environment, going to a library and you have all those resources, it's kind of like help.
Yeah, and one of the lovely things was I know from speaking to some of the year 13s, that they knew, because their teachers had told them that if they wanted to continue to do practice papers, if they wanted to write essays during the Easter holidays, they know that they could send those to their teachers, and their teachers will prioritize them over their own holidays this Easter time as well. And I think, again, that's another example of how that each member of staff in the building is there to do whatever they can, no matter what their role, from cleaners right the way through to senior leaders, and everyone in between is there to ensure that the environment facilitates the flourishing of every single one of our students.
Even a single meal matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
The food.
It really does, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, again, this recent inspection showed that they spoke to cleaners about their understanding of safeguarding and, how do they stay alert and vigilant. It's really important. And our cleaners were able to say, they've been trained to look for any worrying signs, and then to sort of feedback that back to the designated safeguarding lead. Those really strong communication loops, which mean that I would never sit here and say, nothing bad could ever happen, but we have systems in place which mean that there are minimal chances of that happening. And when there are difficulties, when some of those things that happen in every school happen, they happen very rarely at Bosworth. And when they do, for example, when a student underperforms, even the most conscientious of them, life gets in the way, or there are distractions, or there may be mental health concerns. The inspectors found that whenever there is underperformance, teachers have in place really robust mechanisms that mean that instantly they know, and the students know that their teachers know, and they're given individualized feedback to get back on track again very quickly as well. So yeah, a real spirit of vigilance and safeguarding and care and individual attention.
Right. Great. Well, before we wrap up, so is there any advice to our students or parents who are wanting to study in the UK or in a boarding school in Bosworth, Yeah,
I think I would say you should absolutely come and take a look at us. Of course, from any based here in Hong Kong, that won't be possible to come and visit us physically, but come and visit us virtually. We have a brand new prospectus that is now available on the website. That's really exciting. We launched that in the last few weeks. We have a great presence on our social media channels, so check us out on there. I think what I would be saying is, this is so much about the fit. And I would really strongly encourage families to do their research, try to get a sense as far as possible of what a school's ethos and emphasis is. And grades are important, and I know that that they are a priority for lots of families. But I'm also aware that increasingly, perhaps in a post-COVID world, we recognise that families are looking for more, and the prerogative and priority for families is, yes, academic outcomes, but ultimately they want their children to be happy and to be safe. And at Bosworth, I can assure parents that that is absolutely the case, that we offer our students, each and every one of them, a very, very good deal. And it's interesting, I finished there with the word deal, because we are very proud of the fact that we are affordable. So I'm really pleased to be able to share that we have, when VAT was imposed on independent schools, as it was last year, Bosworth didn't pass on any of that to parents. And that arrangement was in place for this academic year and next year. But I'm really pleased to be able to tell your listeners that actually that arrangement will continue in perpetuity. So you go and look at our fees. You will find that they are very deliberately affordable. I would say it was sort of affordable without compromise on the quality of education.
But of course, at the end, it's all about the children finding the best fit, as you said.
Absolutely.
And I believe, like Bosworth, that you just mentioned, all these like curriculum, the courses that offer, and extra curriculum and the support that really.
Absolutely. And we were just talking a moment ago about how do students making applications make sure that their application stands out from the crowd. What I would say to parents is, adopt the same principle when you're looking at a school as well. Every school is going to talk about its exam results, its pastoral care. What is a school doing above and beyond? And I would say that Bosworth, I could be here all afternoon telling you about the ways in which we go above and beyond. It's a really special place.
Right.
I think for parents who are planning ahead, if there are enough time, you can also consider sending the kids to the UK for a summer camp. So Bosworth, we also have a summer camp during the summer, every summer. So if any parents considering that they still have time, they can send the kids over to Bosworth for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks to feel how it is to be in the UK. Of course, it's not the same timetable as you study the GCSE or A-level curriculum, but at least you get to try out the boarding life in the UK.
Especially it's quite like having that like trial, having a sense of what is being living with someone else apart from your family is a bit different.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a huge investment, a huge financial investment for families, and we wouldn't, sort of buy a house without going and experiencing it. We wouldn't, we test drive our cars and things like that. So as far as it's possible, through a summer school or through spending time following us on our socials, spending time sort of looking at the prospectus and the website and sort of trying to trial the school as much as is possible.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
And if any one of you are interested in Bosworth Independent College, or feel free to contact us or contact Rochelle and Tony for further information. So hopefully we'll see you again in Hong Kong soon. So,
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.